right. There were so many factors that contributed to the widespread damage that we saw across the CSRA. One of those main contributing factors was the presence of mesovortices inside the eye wall of Helene. And we're going to take a closer look at what mesovortices are. So with every hurricane, the structure of any hurricane includes the eye. And the eye is the center of the storm. At the center of the eye, you have sinking air. But on the periphery of that eye, you have the eye wall, which is the strongest part of any hurricane. And inside that eye wall, you can have intense pockets of rotation known as mesovortices, and these can help create intense pockets of rainfall as well as intense pockets of wind. That intense rainfall can help those winds effectively mix down to the surface, which is what we saw with Helene as the eastern part of that eye wall passed right through the heart of the CSRA. And the National Weather Service in Columbia confirms that we saw wind gusts 80 to 100 plus miles an hour as a result of this, which is equivalent to EF0 to EF1 tornadoes. So that is why we saw widespread tornado-like damage across the CSRA. And these winds were able to effectively mix down, leading to widespread damage of trees, tree canopies, and also a lot of structures around the CSRA.
Your first alert meteorologist, Mikkel Hannah-Harding, has more on what you should know when it comes to tornadoes. Mikkel.
Well, yes, a very concerning time frame for that tornadic possibility tomorrow night. So just a quick reminder of some safe places to go inside of a home, which is where many of us will be when we're talking about that threat lining up closer to midnight and those pre-dawn hours of our Friday. So as we go inside of the house, the idea is to put as many walls in between you and outside as possible. So also want to stay away from windows and putting yourself inside of those interior hallways, underneath a stairwell, also a bathroom, all pretty good places to be. Kitchens, living rooms, not ideal because those often have windows and are also closer towards the outside, as well as your bedrooms and garages. You don't want to take shelter inside of any of those places. And of course, you never want to be outside, so the deck is automatically a no-go. The best place to be is in a basement in any situation when there is a tornado warning in your area. But as we know, living in the South and in the CSRA, basements aren't common everywhere. But again, just the idea here is to avoid windows, put as many walls between you and outside as possible. Also want to avoid doorways, being in any of those doorways. You can cover yourself with blankets or mattresses to help protect yourself, a mattress if possible. Say if the roof starts to kind of collapse on top of you, that can add an extra layer of protection. Also want to make sure that you're wearing shoes because you may be in a situation where you have to maneuver through some debris after a storm has passed and if you get hit directly by a tornado. But also never want to take shelter inside of a mobile home, a vehicle, or a overpass. And again, just put as many walls between you and outside as possible and stay away from windows. Well, thank you for that forecast, Emily. We are still out here at the Lock-In Dam, just noticing that right now we're kind of in a lighter patch of that rainfall, but definitely have seen some moderate to heavy rainfall while I've been out here today. Thankfully, we're not seeing any flood concerns from the Savannah River, at least at this point here in Augusta. River levels are forecasted to rise about 6 more feet in between now and Thursday night, but it will still stay below that action flood stage, which is the lowest flood stage possible for rivers. As we go a little bit further downstream, though, about an hour, hour and a half, closer to Screven, Allendale County, they do have a flood warning along the Burton's Ferry section of the Savannah River, as they are also forecasted to see that river rising about an additional 5 feet, it looks like, in between now and Thursday, but they should be able to stay out of that flood stage action and minor, which are some of the lowest flood levels again. And then for the Ogeechee River at Midville, they're expecting that river, that portion of the river, to get up to flood levels, at least the action to maybe even minor flood stage by Thursday, as it rises about an additional 1 to 2 feet. So thankfully here in Augusta, we've seen about an inch and a half of rainfall here in this portion of Augusta near the Lock-In Dam, but just haven't seen enough rainfall for us to see widespread flooding issues. As Emily just mentioned, though, we do see those flash flood warnings getting a little bit closer towards Richmond County, Aiken County now. So we'll continue to monitor that rain threat through this evening. Looks to be a drier Wednesday at this time, and still looking later in the week to see what Debbie does.
Harding along the Savannah River for us, Mikkel. We appreciate that. We're going to keep an eye on those water levels as the rain continues falling. Thanks, guys, for the update there. Mikkel.
That's right, Richard. This storm definitely has a pretty wide scope, and you just really described that really well. As far as looking at Debbie right now here on infrared satellite, still approaching the coastline of South Carolina and likely going to make landfall here relatively soon, sometime overnight heading into our Thursday morning. If not, maybe closer to about midnight. As we look at the path of Debbie, that cone of uncertainty a lot skinnier now, so pretty good confidence at least where the center of this storm is headed, but have to remember that impacts will be felt outside of the center of circulation. That's why we still have some concerns about impacts from from Debbie on the backside of this system. And as it does continue through North Carolina tomorrow into tomorrow night, then we'll finally see it get picked up by the jet stream. And by Friday night, it could be somewhere near New York possibly. So definitely going to pick up forward motion, currently moving at about 3 miles an hour. So a very slow moving system still here. But as Richard mentioned, up there in Wilmington, North Carolina, a slew of flash flood warnings. You can see some pops of lightning here and just a really solid rain shield on the northern and eastern side of this system, but a very lopsided system. A lot of dry air has begun to work into it. It's kind of eating away at the structure of the system. But across our area, we're mostly dry for tonight and have been for a few hours now. Still looking at flood warnings, though, that include Allendale, Screven County, and Jenkins County overnight into the overnight hours of our Thursday. So still some concerns there if we do see any rainfall develop in the pre-dawn hours for some flash flooding issues. As far as rainfall totals, you can definitely see that our southern counties have not been spared from this rain event with Debbie. Looking at widespread swaths of over half a foot of rainfall that has likely fallen in the past 72 hours. And with this slight risk out from the Weather Prediction Center tomorrow, that's why we have went ahead and issued a first alert just out of an abundance of caution. It's not a first alert weather day, so not guaranteeing really bad weather tomorrow for everyone. But if any of these counties here do see half an inch to even an inch of rainfall, that could be very problematic because of the amount of rainfall we have seen, especially in those southern and eastern counties where you saw some of those really high rainfall totals over the past 72 hours. Also still have flood watches in effect through Friday morning. So still the Weather Prediction Center, all of our government weather agencies on board with that potential for more flooding issues as we head into tomorrow. I will say that the latest model trends do start to favor at least not quite as intense of rainfall across the area for our eastern and southern counties going through our day tomorrow. This is the most aggressive model that I've seen in terms of bringing a lot of rainfall through. This one kind of favors rainfall moving through late tomorrow night on the backside as that system finally begins to pull away heading into our Friday. But outside of that, those impacts look to be somewhat limited to just our eastern counties along the Savannah River in our southern counties. But over the next 7 days, rainfall totals could again range anywhere from about half an inch to an inch and a half, as there's not a lot of rainfall expected here in the coming days, especially going through the weekend. And there's a look at the flash flood risk here for the next 5 days. A lot of wet weather across the southeast for today. We do have flash flood warnings across the central and northern part of the CSRA. You can just see the continued funneled motion of a lot of this heavy rainfall across the same areas, and that's what's causing these flash flooding concerns this afternoon already. We're looking at one here for portions of Edgefield, McCormick, Lincoln County that goes until 6 p.m. this evening. So that's almost 2 additional hours from now. And we're looking at this one that's in effect for Metro Augusta, places like Martinez, Evans, Grovetown, Fort Eisenhower, all underneath that flash flood warning. And this goes until 4:30 p.m. We could see that extended as long as we do continue to see some of that heavy rainfall moving over that warned location. As far as looking at tropical alerts, the entire state of South Carolina and Georgia underneath some form of a tropical alert. Lots of tropical storm warnings and all the CSRA are underneath that. And we even have hurricane warnings coming up as far north as Macon near the I-16 corridor. Pretty impressive as that system could maintain at least Category 1 strength as it pushes further inland. We also have a tornado watch across the area for these areas shaded in yellow that goes through 9 p.m. tonight. We also could see that extended into the later hours of tonight as that threat is ongoing. And also we have a flood watch that goes through tomorrow afternoon. So lots of alerts in place just in preparation for some of the worst impacts that we haven't even seen yet, but already seeing some significant impacts from rainfall that started last night. But as far as the severe outlook for today, that's also bumped up considerably from yesterday. You can see much of us in that level 2 out of 5 risk now, so a slight risk, and also some of our southern counties in between Bamberg, portions of Barnwell, all of Allendale, and Screven County underneath that level 3 enhanced risk. So that's where the greatest threat for tornadoes would lie. We've already seen 2 tornado warnings in Bamberg County for today, so that's already verifying so far, and expecting to see possibly more through tonight. As far as those winds, those will pick up closer to midnight and thereafter, and then that flood threat pretty much ongoing from now all the way through tomorrow morning. Hail looks to be a low threat with any storms that we do see, but never can rule that out as well with severe weather. But as far as looking at Helene here on infrared satellite, it's a massive system. Definitely still seeing some signs of strengthening with bursts of convection near that center of circulation, but this system will have impacts felt well outside this cone of uncertainty. So this very skinny cone means we have a lot of confidence on where the center of this system is headed, but again, those impacts will be far and wide outside the cone. The tropical storm wind field right now extending up to around 400 miles away from the center of circulation. It's forecasted to pass us as a Category 1 hurricane or a very strong tropical storm, which would increase our wind threat. And we're pretty confident in where the system is heading because it is forecasted to merge with the upper level area of low pressure and that's an effect that's referred to as the Fujiwara effect. You may have seen a lot of meteorologists posting about that on Facebook, including our own chief meteorologist, Riley Hill, made a post about that today. But as far as impacts through tonight, again, some of the worst impacts not expected until later tonight into tomorrow morning.